Most people only use small speakers for a quick reality check, but you're missing out on some seriously powerful mixed translation tools. I've recently started experimenting with a few new ways that people don't seem to talk about that much, that have made a big difference in how my mixers sound on everything from phones to big speakers. So I'm going to show you exactly how to use a small speaker to make your mixers translate everywhere. To start, let me show you the area where small speakers tell the truth very quickly: the bass. You know when the low end sounds warm and full on your main monitors, but on your laptop or your phone the bass just disappears? This happens because small speakers can't reproduce bass and sub-frequencies. All you're hearing is the upper harmonic content of your bass instruments. This is exactly what real-world listeners rely on to hear bass, because most devices simply don't reach that low. So the question becomes, does the bass still feel present on the small speaker? If yes, your harmonic structure is supporting the bass correctly. If no, it needs more saturation or mid-range energy. Using a parallel distortion track on your bass guitar is a controlled way of dialing in the exact amount of harmonic distortion to your bass, so it can be detected clearer on mobile devices. Now, that concept of using a parallel distorted bass track is not new, but I want to show you how to use a small speaker to set the level of that track perfectly. I've got some electric guitars here, I've got a bass guitar here to demonstrate this for you. I haven't got any drums in this context because I want you to really hear this, and sometimes it can be, because it's quite a subtle effect and you've got to listen for things just changing, that can be difficult, I find, on YouTube sometimes to get that across. So just for this example, I've just pulled together a bass guitar and some electric guitars. Let's take a listen to what I've got here then. Let's bring in the electrics with it. Okay, if you're listening on headphones or listening on full range monitors, then you will have heard the bass guitar gelling together with the electrics to give you a nice kind of full wall of guitar sound. It makes perfect sense to use a small speaker to actually set the parallel distortion to get the bass heard exactly on that type of speaker. This is the bass distortion track. Okay, so what am I doing there? I'm using a distortion plugin to just create a bandpassed version of the bass guitar that I am heavily distorting. So I love this plugin. It's free from Kit. Do go ahead and to their website and find it. But what I tend to do is just sort of set the low cut to just in that sort of honky region of the bass guitar, sort of 700 to 850, that really kind of honky nasal area of the bass guitar. So I've got my low cut set there, and then the high cut, I've just high cut it so that I don't hear any high frequencies in the sound. It literally in itself, it sounds like it's playing through a small speaker. Then I just really distort it. So the idea is now to blend this heavily distorted bandpassed bass guitar into the mix till we just hear it on small speakers. It's got to be one of those cases where it's set so low that you can't perhaps necessarily hear it outright, but when you bypass it, you notice something's changed, something's missing. For the purposes of this demonstration, what I've done is I've put on the mix bus a bandpassed EQ preset with everything rolled off under 300 hertz and everything above 4K rolled off. And so that is going to give you the impression of a small speaker, and I hope it's going to work. Okay, so keep it bypassed for the minute. The distortion is faded out. Here is the bass guitar and the electrics together without the bandpass EQ. And with it, so immediately you've lost that low energy. It's just not there, literally. And so you lose the sense of the bass guitar in the mix. I'll play this mix through, and what I'll start to do is just fade up this parallel bass distortion track until we can just hear it or detect it in this bandpass mix. It's easier to hear if the bass player is actually playing some high notes. Let's just audition that now. What I'll do is I'll just mute it in and out to see if we can hear the change. Okay, so in that context then, I could particularly hear it in these sections up here, I think. So find a spot in the mix where you've got some high frequency content, of some higher notes being played by the bass player, and focus on that to set your distortion. So if I mute that, okay, I hope you heard that difference. Now let's bypass this bandpass filter on the mix, see what the full fat version sounds like. Versus muted. I think this is a really great tip and a great way to use a small speaker that I don't hear many people talking about. And two for the price of one, this also works when dialing in things like parallel vocal compression. Any parallel compression, actually, this will work really well at doing. So I was doing this in stereo, so let's just make sure how this sounds in mono. Here's the mono mix without the bass distortion. And with. If anything, in mono it just seems a touch louder than it does in stereo. That is the distorted parallel. Just try and bring that down a little bit, maybe a dB. Yeah, that seems good. And then without the bandpass version and without the monoing. Now, I've tried this on Oratones and my Fostex speaker, and it works every time. What this tells you is how much harmonic content the bass needs to translate on typical playback systems. It removes the guesswork and gives you confidence that your low-end decisions will track to all systems. But low-end isn't the only area small speakers reveal. They also expose arrangement and masking issues that full-range monitors tend to disguise. At the BBC Maida Vale studios, there was always a small mono speaker sitting somewhere off to the side, and it was used constantly. Switching to it halfway through a session would reveal masking problems such as guitars covering the vocal, for example. It was clear in a way the main monitors just didn't show. Why does this work? Well, placing a small speaker away from the mix position creates a triple filter we have to listen through. First of all, it's the limited bandwidth of the speaker, then it's mono summing, and then it's off-axis room response. These three elements strip away flattering depth, warmth, and stereo width, leaving only the raw mid-range structure. So get that speaker off your desk and locate it somewhere away from you. On this speaker, you'll quickly hear if the vocal is competing with mid-range instruments, if the chorus is losing impact, if transitions lack contrast, or if too many parts are sharing the same frequency zone. This method is so powerful in mixing, but it's equally powerful during the writing and production stage. If the arrangement doesn't survive on a small speaker in mono because it's too cluttered, it won't survive the mix. Now, there's an extra step you can take to make this test even more powerful. Annoyingly, most real listeners don't sit still. They don't sit in between the speakers perfectly. They move around the room. They listen at odd angles or play music in reflected spaces like kitchens or bathrooms. Your mix needs to stay consistent through all of that. Instead of just sitting at your mix position, physically take your small speaker and move it to 5 or 6 different positions in your room. Put it into corners, put it up against the wall, put it in the middle of the room so it's not near any reflective surfaces. Even put it out in the hallway or in the bathroom. And you should move around as well. Change your listening position at each spot and listen for things like the essential elements. The essentials are things like the verse vocal or the chorus hook and then the main drum and bass groove. If these stay consistent, your arrangement and balance are in a good place. If your arrangement only works in the sweet spot in your treated room, it won't translate. This tests whether your mix has the necessary contrast and frequency separation to work anywhere. In here, for example, I've got a couple of Bluetooth speakers behind me that I can move around to test out my mix. I've often heard the advice to stand outside the room, stand outside your studio, just outside the door and listen to your mix. Well, this is kind of flipping that on its head by moving the speaker to different locations around your house to check how the mix translates. But some small speakers don't just help you hear problems, they can also help you see them. I don't hear this talked about that much, but it's a really different and effective way to use a small speaker for translation of the low end. A quick glance at the small speaker's cone is a big clue to the size of the low end energy in your mix. Even though the speaker can't reproduce deep lows, the cone still tries to react to that energy. So try this out. While mixing low end elements, so your kick, your bass, synths, 808s, whatever, watch how much the cone moves. Use this alongside your ears, of course, and if the cone is barely moving on the small speaker, yet your mix sounds bass heavy on big speakers, you know you need some more mid-range harmonics. Use reference tracks to learn how your particular speaker moves as it reproduces bass frequencies, and a great tip is to actually just touch the cone, particularly if you feel like your speakers don't move that much. Touch the cone. Feel the vibrations, get to know it intimately. And this gives you a second data point And when your eyes and your ears agree, your confidence improves. When they don't, you know exactly where to go to fix it. These small speaker techniques help you hear your mix more honestly and make clearer decisions. But even with the right tools, your ears can still be fooled. And that's something every mixer struggles with, especially when you're working alone in a home studio. If you want to understand why your ears sometimes lead you in the wrong direction and how to avoid the traps that cause poor decisions in the first place, watch this video next. It's all about the forms of ear trickery that quietly sabotage your mixers and how to recognise them before they push you off course. That's all from me. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.